Hello and welcome to my show, Inner Work for Greater Good, just making sure I have my microphone on. Inner Work for Greater Good. My name is Emily Eldridge. I am the founder of ChangeLight and the creator of the ChangeLight system. Here is my website. I always like to show my website just because you can see that this is more than just a TV show, right? It's a whole world. It's a whole place to explore where you can really learn this work and really expand your inner awareness, inner understanding, and really learn how to do this for yourself. So my specialty is change makers, as it says, a light in the dark for change makers. I am here to help accelerate the healing of our planet and humanity by teaching change makers inner work. And change makers, as I define it, is anybody who's driven to make a positive difference in the world, anyone who's driven to change our world for the better. And I know there are a lot of you out there, even if you may not necessarily identify yourselves as a change maker, if you are really working hard to make a change in the world, to make a difference in the world and try to make life better for people and planet, then I would call you a change maker. And this show and my work, as I often said, if this is your first time, I'll repeat myself, as I often say, it really is about teaching change makers inner work that accelerates your power to change the world. And the importance of that inner work, that it's not just about what we do that makes a difference, it's about who we are and how we show up in the world. And that inner work has a huge impact on how we show up. And that so much of the time that when we do that inner work, what we discover is that we can show up a lot more radiant, a lot happier, is that life can become more effortless. And our efforts in changing the world can also become more effortless, if you will. Less busy work, you're more focused, you're more effective and productive. Indeed, what I'm going to share with you today has to do with those powers that you have inside of you. And these are powers that I discovered in my work that are all about really increasing your productivity and sense of purpose and your power and pleasure in your life. So being a change maker is hard. We make it easier. That's what this is all about. I don't think we should have to struggle and suffer so hard. Obviously, it's difficult sometimes, especially if you know you have a mission to serve. I recently made some big moves in my own business and in my own work, but they were moves that are all about honoring my truth. And even though, and you've probably experienced this too, even though I know this is my truth, I know this is what I'm supposed to do, and there's a certain amount of excitement and thrill in it, there's also a lot of fear. There's also a lot of those, inner critics and inner woundeds and those things that pop up and get in the way. So this is about helping to clear those parts that get in the way and make it harder to really live your truth and make the difference and do what you feel called to do, serve how you feel called to serve, and make the difference that you know in your heart you are capable of making. So as always, I like to show this diagram that shows the elements of the ChangeLight system. What I'm showing here isn't so much the techniques as really what the whole trajectory of the ChangeLight system is about. And in the last 4 episodes, I should say, I don't know if you saw that or not, but if you haven't seen my last 4 episodes, I highly recommend them because I talk about the very first thing that's on the left on your screen, your inner emPowers. And emPowers is a term that I use for parts of you that you struggle with, parts of you that feel like they work against your power. But as we're going to discover in this episode, that the reason why I call them emPowers is because, kind of like you would say an ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend, no longer your boyfriend or girlfriend, formerly, well, that's what emPowers really are. They are formerly parts of your power. And so I talked about that in the previous episodes. I talk about emPowers and the 3 types of emPowers. And in this episode, we're going to talk about your inner emPowers. But the whole point is that it's really in order to fully live your truth. And as I say, living your truth is your job. That is what you're here to do. That is who you're here to be. And so that's the job. And so it's really a matter of just doing that inner work to clear out those emPowers, those blocks, triggers, wounds, blind spots. And I have a really awesome and amazing technique that I use called the drawing out process that does that. Also have a drawing out process technique for bringing forward your emPowers so that they can fully empower you. Also bringing forward your guiding star, which is that vision of who you're here to be, doing what you came here to do. And it's that thing that you can connect with, that it's like, oh, that's who I am when I'm fully living my truth. You have this vision, I have this vision inside of me. And so ultimately, it really is about living your truth. So as I mentioned in this episode, we are going to talk about your inner emPowers. So in the previous episodes, the stuff we talked about is kind of complicated and difficult, and so sort of even hard to talk about with those xPowers, because it really is talking about those things that cause your triggers, or that cause your blocks, or that hold the woundedness from childhood or even from adulthood, from traumas. And so xPowers are pretty complicated because they can have their own sorts of sets of issues. So now we're going to go a little more towards into the light, though. We're in the xPowers, we were talking about these parts of you that have ultimately essentially fallen into darkness. Well, we'll find out more about where they came from in this episode. So we're going to talk about your inner emPowers. There are 3 types of emPowers, just so you know, and we'll talk about those in the next 3 episodes. But first, let's define, what is an emPower? Well, it's really simple, and you can figure out why I call them emPowers. Your emPowers are the parts of you that empower you to live your truth. So we're talking about the fact that it's your job, if you will. That's your whole purpose, is to live your truth, whatever that is, to actualize that truth, to show up in the world, to grow a certain way into a certain presence. That's how I see it, and that's how I approach it. And that's been my experience and my clients' experience. But here's the thing, and this is what's so wonderful, is it's not as though it's this sort of thing that you're like, wow, I gotta live my truth and I don't know how to do it. No, you're divinely designed to live your truth, and you have all of the power you need already to live your truth, to do that, to be who you came here to be. So part of what I teach here, and I'm going to teach you, is that it's about accessing that power to realize that you're not alone in this. It's not as though you have to figure this out on your own. You have these wonderful 3 wonderful emPowers. I call them emPowers because they empower you to live your truth. But you have these wonderful emPowers whose job it is to help you live it. Okay, let me repeat that. You have amazing and wonderful emPowers inside of you, whose job it is to help you live your truth. So you're not alone. It's like, I have clients who actually call it, like, their emPowers, they call it like my inner committee, and they consult their inner committee of emPowers. And each emPower, and again, I'm gonna share with you the 3 types in the next 3 episodes. Right now, I just want to talk generally about emPowers, but the whole point is, they are like your guides, your consultants. They're your inner team that you can call on, and they're each going to give you a different perspective. But ultimately, their whole purpose is to support you in living your truth. So your emPowers are never going to lead you astray. They really are. It's like they're different aspects of your inner wisdom, of your inner clarity. And they're all about guiding you to do things that support you in living your truth, but also that feel good for you. Because that's what this is about too. There's too much suffering, there's too much strife, there's too much struggle. And one of my big intentions as well is to make it easier for everyone, but especially change makers, as I was talking about, to do that. So what exactly do emPowers do? emPowers enable you to survive, feel alive, and have purpose and drive. So let me break that down. Okay, look at how different each of those is, right? It's one thing to survive. And there are a lot of people on our planet where they're just about survival, and they're just, maybe they're so stressed out, or they're so driven, or they're workaholics, or they're always anxious about just survival. And so it's one thing to survive, but imagine if you're surviving, but you don't feel alive. I mean, how horrible is that? Here's the other thing though, too. What if you're surviving and you feel alive, but you don't have any sense of direction or purpose or focus in your life? So there's that 3rd element of purpose, focus, direction, and drive. You're driven to be a certain way, or show up a certain way, or accomplish certain things. Same thing goes with, there are plenty of people where, they're kind of like, yeah, I have a great time. My life is great. And it's all about feeling alive. But then they might be missing some elements that have to do with, well, there are certain practical realities of being in this body on this planet, the way the planet is, that those elements of survival are also extremely important. And so that's what emPowers also do. They help you with that survival aspect. They help you to feel alive. And then finally, there's purpose and drive. I've met plenty of people in my work and elsewhere where they have a sense of purpose. They have a sense of mission, like they know what they're here to do, but they don't know how to sort of bring the pieces together to make it happen. Or maybe they do know how to bring the pieces, but they don't feel alive doing it. That's one of my things too, with a lot of change makers, and I'm a change maker too, is that we may have a strong sense of purpose and mission and getting things done, but there's so much stress and pain and struggle and strife, and you end up burning out, or you end up showing up in ways that really ultimately aren't serving your purpose or aren't serving your mission, or may end up even sabotaging your efforts. And so that's where feeling alive, that's where all three of these elements are so vital to feel fulfilled and whole in our lives. And again, that's what's so cool, because that's what emPowers do. They each have that as sort of their job. So if you find yourself that you're like out of balance, you can actually call on them. I'll talk about that in a minute. So what do? They hold the perfect balance of qualities, talents, and aptitudes that you need, in order to fully actualize your truth. So I talked about, oh dear, sorry, there's some work going on in the building, like on the outside of the building. I'm sorry about the noises. But anyway, there's like ropes hitting the windows. So anyway, the point is I said earlier that good Lord, that you were divinely designed to be who you are here to be. You have all of the power you need inside of you. So the point is, though, that you have your own unique truth. Just laughing at this. This is, if I were to show you, you'd be laughing too. It's like a rope. They're just slapping against the window. Sorry about this. But the point is, you have all of the power you need to be who you are here to be. And you have your own unique truth. You have your truth, capital T truth. I have my truth. Everyone has their own truth. So it's not about trying to live someone else's truth or be something else. Or it's at the same time, it's not about trying to have in like particular qualities or, aspects of yourself that you just don't have or that aren't as prominent as others. And so your emPowers are the ones that actually hold those qualities. They hold those aptitudes and those talents. Obviously, skills are something we can develop. But the point is, whatever it is that you're here to do, you've got it inside of you. You already have it inside of you. In fact, one of the things I like to say is you actually already are who you're here to be. You're just being revealed. So it's about those parts and bringing forward those parts whose divine, job it is, if you will, to support you in doing that and doing that in different ways. So what I mean by that is too about the perfect balance for you is that when I think about my emPowers, I might have just innately more of a certain emPower than you do. Doesn't mean, I just have that because that's what I need in order to fulfill my truth. Whereas you may have more than I do in other ways. And so it's not a competition here, obviously, because it really is just about accessing and honoring. We're going to talk about that word in a minute, but it's about honoring the way you are designed. I have found it never works to go against what is your nature, or in this case, what are your emPowers and how you were designed to be. Obviously, you can develop in certain ways. Oh dear, like grow in certain ways and bring forward certain powers at different times. But it really is about honoring how you were designed, knowing that how you were designed is perfect for helping you be who you are and who you are here to be, actualizing your truth. So bringing your truth that's inside of you into reality. Finally, on this page, they love you serve you and support you in every way that they can. So this is by way of saying it's not as though your emPowers just sort of sit there and it's like, oh, they're just kind of here hanging out. No, this is their job. This is their mission. This is their purpose. They serve you. And when I work with emPowers inside of people, because this is one of the things that I do, is I actually talk to the emPowers inside of people. And I also talk to the xPowers, as I talked about in my previous episodes. But I'm sorry I'm laughing, but this is just hilarious because anyway, of course they're gonna be rope slapping against the window during my show. Anyway, it just cracks me up. But the point is that that's their job. And so when we call on our emPowers to support us, it's not as though we're asking parts of us to do something that they don't want to do necessarily. It's all about actually saying, hey, guess what? I could use your help with this. Could you support me? And they go, sure, I'd love to support you. This is great. And here's what I recommend. So that's what emPowers are all about, empowering you to live your truth. I mentioned the word honor your emPowers. Now, there are a lot of ways to do this. I'm going to explain one way after this, but there are a lot of ways to honor your emPowers. First of all, in the previous episodes, if you watch those, you'll see that I talked about healing your xPowers. In other words, that those xPowers are the parts that work against your power, that are the blocks, the triggers, the wounds, the blind spots that make it harder to live your truth, that make it harder to even know what your truth is. Well, with your emPowers, they don't need healing. They're good. They're already whole and they feel complete and at peace. And you'll see that xPowers are related to helping strengthen those emPowers inside of you. But the point is that honoring, when you look at the word honor and the definition of honor, that it's about really listening to what they're telling you and what their counsel is. So if you ask them questions, and then following through on that. Okay, so it's like you're honoring a commitment, right? Think of the term honoring an agreement, honoring a commitment, honoring a contract. You don't just sign the contract and be like, okay, we're done, like as though there's nothing more. Oftentimes with an agreement or a contract, there's a promise. And so you're expected to follow through on that. And the more you do follow through on that commitment, then the more trust there is between you and that other person with whom you've made that commitment. I'm not saying with emPowers you have to write a contract with them, although maybe that's part of your journey with them. It's really fun to see how people play with their emPowers, really. But it really is about you listen and you follow through. So here's why you honor your emPowers when you bring them forward. Because when you do that, it is amazing. There are very simple techniques to do this. I teach this in my course in the ChangeLight system. There are super simple techniques for doing this. Here's the thing. When you honor your emPowers, they help you feel more clear, balanced, fulfilled, and safe in your own skin, okay? Balanced. Here's the thing. A lot of times, sometimes our emPowers can get kind of out of balance because, what emPower feels like it needs to sort of take over or it needs to be more prominent in certain situations. But what can then happen is some of the other emPowers end up not being as honored. There's that word again. And so it's really important to honor all three. It doesn't mean that all three are of equal power within you necessarily, as I've described, but it's really important to listen to all three. So that's really important. And it helps you feel more balanced and it helps all parts of you feel honored and fulfilled. It's so interesting. I remember the first person I ever shared this technique with, the very simple technique that I teach to honor your emPowers. It's a simple question. And I taught it to her and she said, she did it for 30 days. I completely forgot I'd even shared it with her, frankly. And she said to me, she just reached out to me randomly and said, oh my God, this is amazing. I feel so much more at peace. And she goes, and I'm not looking for validation as much from other people. She's like, I feel so much more whole on the inside. I don't feel like I need their approval. Pretty cool, because these parts of you are being honored and you're following through, and then you're feeling so much better. And the whole safe in your own skin is really important. And if you go back and watch the xPowers episodes, you'll see why. emPowers have the answers you need. As I said, this isn't like you're sort of brought into this world and you have this truth and you know you're supposed to do stuff, but it's like you don't have any guidance. We've got guidance. We've got a lot of forms of guidance. One of them is the emPowers. So when you have questions that you need answers, your emPowers will actually give you three, sometimes their perspective will be very, very similar, but sometimes it's three sort of different versions of the same perspective, or three different perspectives. I was struggling with something really recently, and I was really just like racking my brain. And then I thought, wait a minute, what if I just stop and ask my emPowers what they think? What do they recommend? And it was so cool because they gave me like three different perspectives, or three different ways of helping me through it, three different kinds of guidance. And the truth is, I could actually honor all of those. I could really listen, and I felt so much clearer and more whole. So that's why it's so important to honor your emPowers. They keep you focused on your truth and headed in the right direction. Remember, I said that it's emPower's job to empower you to live your truth. So they're never going to lead you astray. They're always going to give you the wisdom that you need at that moment. And the wisdom may be kind of surprising. I'll share this in the next episodes, but there's one particular emPower that's more, I would say, like you're like a left brain type of emPower. And so sometimes you might expect that it's going to give you guidance to like do something that's sort of left brained, but actually it might say something like, you need to go for a walk. Like, go for a walk. And it's like, really? It's like, yes, because your emPower knows often better than you do what you need. And so that's what's so cool. It's just this well of wonderful wisdom and pleasure and joy inside of you that you can tap into. It's just a matter of bringing it forward. And obviously what I'm ultimately saying is they hold immense wisdom and power for you. They are your power. They are parts, they are like gifts from your truth, if you will, who are here to enable you to actually do what you came here to do, or make decisions, on a daily basis. It could even be something simple like, I need to schedule my day. Okay, there's a particular emPower for that. Or, oh, I'm really, really feeling burned out. Guess what? There's actually a whole other, again, I'm going to share this over the next 3 episodes, but there's a whole other emPower for that. So they've got it. They've got it for you. You are not alone in this journey. Your emPowers know what you need and what's right for you. So the drawing out process, I always like to share this because in the previous episodes about xPowers, your inner struggles, I talked about the drawing out process. And in that case, it's a full process of literally drawing out these parts of you. It brings forward from your subconscious in a way that pretty much nothing else can, in my experience, at least, versus maybe talking or journaling. Drawing does this really special thing. The point is that I talked before about drawing out process for xPowers, and it permanently in like 2 hours, you can heal an inner critic with the drawing out process. That's what I do. That's what I do with my clients. We heal this stuff. It's really fast. It's really easy. It's quick and stuff, lifelong struggles. But guess what? You can also use the drawing out process for emPowers. So you can actually draw out these emPowers and bring them forward. See this drawing right here of this blonde woman with the blue gem on her forehead and the heart and the radiant light and all that kind of stuff. This was actually one of mine that is, I will share with you. I think the next episode will be about your inner sovereign. So this one turned out to be my inner sovereign, or a sovereign aspect of me, who gave me some incredible guidance. In fact, actually, the guidance she gave me had to do with xPowers. She was actually originally, when I first heard her, she was really mad at me because she was like, you keep talking about us as though there's something wrong with us. This was years ago. And I tell this whole story in my course. But the point is that this was an xPower who turned out to be an emPower. And she was the one who helped me first discover that we have these 3 emPowers inside of us, and that they're here for us and they're here to serve us. So this one's a really special one to me. She was really, really, she is really powerful, and she's a part of me now. She's like blended into me, and she's part of my wisdom now that I can call on. So the point is that you can actually access these by drawing them out. And by drawing them out, you can more easily and joyfully live your truth. Easily, joyfully, peacefully, That's what this is about. As a change maker myself, I know how easy it is to get like, oh my God, I have to do these things. And oh my gosh, I'm here to serve this purpose. Or I feel really driven to make a difference, and to like stress out and to overdo it and to burn out. I have burned out so many times. I've been sick. I've had all these problems with, my health and with my business and stuff, and this was prior to me honoring my emPowers, because I didn't know how to tap into these parts of me to keep me more balanced. So yes, I'm here to serve a purpose. You're here to serve a purpose. We're change makers. But the point, we can have the biggest impact when we do it with ease and joy and pleasure and peace. And when we do that, then think about it. You walk in a room, then you radiate. You don't walk in a room kind of stressed, and it's like, and people feel different, and you get so much more done doing less. So that's a big part of it. So as I said, xPowers and emPowers are related. Basically, your xPowers, as I described, those parts of you that are like these fragments inside of you that get in the way if you live in your truth and feeling at peace and empowered within yourself, they're just parts of your emPowers that have been fragmented, that have been distorted by fear and by pain. And so that's why when I talked about xPowers before, and I said how powerful it is, how important it is to heal those xPowers, this is why. Because when you heal those xPowers, you actually bring them back to their original empowered state. So those blocks, those triggers, those wounds, those inner critics, those, crying little children, all those parts of you that you struggle with inside, consciously and unconsciously, because most of this is unconscious, that actually when you bring them to the light and when you know how to heal them, which is what I teach in my course, is you heal those parts of you and you reclaim that power that's already there. Remember, you have all of the power you need to be everything you're here to be. So what happens is when you transform those xPowers, they end up turning back into emPowers, so that you can feel more whole and more balanced and more peace. And also it becomes a lot easier to call forward those emPower energies, because there's more of that emPower energy there's more of that energy inside of you that feels whole and at peace. So I showed this at the beginning. This is the trajectory. This is the path of the ChangeLight system. We're all about accessing your treasure, your truth, who you are here to be, and who you are and who you are here to be is how I define your truth. It's that inner knowing. It's that compass that guides you. It is so powerful. It's actually the most powerful force inside of you, but unfortunately, those xPowers get in the way. And so really this is about healing those xPowers, and I teach how to do this in my course, honoring those emPowers so that they can really help you feel more whole and focused. Bringing forward your guiding star, which is that vision of you living your truth and how, what you look like, how you are in the world, how you feel. My guiding star, the more I've tuned into her, the more I'm like amazed by how she is. And the more I'm amazed by how I'm becoming more and more like her. That's what it's about. It's about becoming that version of yourself. And you may never reach it. That's why she's a guiding star. He's a guiding star out there. But the point is, it gives you a direction for who you're here to be. Ultimately, it's about living your truth, actualizing your truth, so that you can truly shine and radiate as brightly and magnificently as possible. So I would love for you to experience the ChangeLight system. It is, so I said I'm the founder of ChangeLight, and we have a course and a community where you can learn how to do this. These are like ridiculously simple techniques that you can learn how to do yourself, and just you take the course, you follow the techniques, you apply them in your life, and you'll feel a difference, I promise. People around the world, change makers everywhere. And I've spoken in places like the United Nations and British Parliament and Chinese universities and prisons. I've met change makers in prisons and worked with them. In fact, the very first TEDx was organized by an inmate in prison who has that drive to make a difference. I actually got to speak at that TEDx. That was one of the TEDx's I've done. But the point is that I have a safe and supportive community where you can do your inner work for greater good. And feeling and know that you can be vulnerable, surrounded by change makers like you who are equally passionate about doing their inner work so that they can accelerate their power to change the world. I would love for you to join us in their community.changelight.world. If you have any questions, of course you can ask me. Again, my name is Emily Eldridge. This has been Inner Work for Greater Good. I'm so happy to have you here. I'm so grateful that we're doing this work together, and I'll see you next time. Mwah.